Hey everyone, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this really important panel. I wish I could be there with you in person, but I just started a new job at the University of Georgia. Go Dogs! So I'm sending you lots of love from the Peach State. Okay, so I've been asked to touch on a couple issues that our panelists will talk about representation in news media, strategies for including diverse voices, and balancing objectivity while doing so. So let's start with the first one. Growing up, what images, voices, and stories did you see of your identity and communities in news media? So frankly, there wasn't a lot. I know that as a South Asian, uh, we don't have a lot of representation to begin with when it comes to media, and then when you get into news media, even less so. That's actually part of the reason why I wanted to become a broadcast journalist, was to increase that representation, to inspire people from my cultural communities that yes, you can pursue these careers. But growing up, there really wasn't a lot. I was fortunate to have been born and raised in Philadelphia, so I saw a few, meaning a handful of folks that were television reporters. When it came to stories, not a ton at all. And frankly, that didn't change no matter where I went in my life and in my career, which is why I really value organizations like the Asian American Journalists Association and the South Asian Journalists Association. I have been a proud and active member of both organizations for countless years now. And every time I'm a part of those conferences that happen every year, I'm reminded that I wasn't alone, even though it felt like that often when I was growing up. Second question. What are your strategies for including diverse voices, perspectives, and experiences in your work in the newsroom or classroom? So I have now transitioned over to academia, and that has been so much fun. And I've been able to draw from my own professional experiences in the newsroom, in the field, and bring them into the classroom. And having made so many connections at those organizations that I mentioned, it's been really easy for me to find diverse voices to bring into the classroom, whether it's teaching journalism, media production, public relations. I've been able to find these voices, get in touch with the resources that I've gotten to learn about at these conferences, and even my own personal experience as a reporter. I felt it was really important for me to pitch stories that perhaps my colleagues wouldn't have thought of as newsworthy. We talk about what constitutes news in different markets at different stations. And I don't want to say that I felt like it was a burden for me to cover those stories, but I thought, if not me, then who? That's not to say that folks that aren't part of my identities can't cover stories that touch on them, but I feel like I have the most authentic voice to help bring out those voices in those communities. So, in terms of strategies, I always think about what I have interacted with in my own career. I curate a lot of diverse perspectives on my social feeds and in my general reading and consumption of news. So that comes pretty easily to me. All right, last question. How do journalists and educators balance objectivity in their work and the demands to produce more inclusive content and spaces for diverse communities? I know our panelists will talk a lot about this, but I'll just touch on it briefly. I think that these two go hand in hand. It is entirely possible to be objective in your work while covering something that hits your community. And I think that when I talk to my students about what they want to cover, what they want to pitch as stories, as content, um, realizing that our world, our country, our communities are much more diverse than what may be seen in news media, and to challenge folks to consider something that they didn't think was news to actually be news. What might be news in one community might not register as news in another, and that's the challenge with coming up with content. But when it comes to developing more inclusive content, yes, it comes down to who constitutes the newsroom. But even if the newsroom isn't as diverse in whatever field that is, it's important for all reporters to know how to cover different communities competently, so that inclusion isn't really a dream, it's a goal that is achieved. So I'll just leave it there. I'm sure that our panelists will have a lot more to talk about this. Once again, sending you lots of love from Georgia, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your convention.